So Simmers, and welcome back to another episode in the Mod Mansion series. For anyone who hasn't seen any of the other episodes in this series, let me do a really quick recap. So I've been building this huge mansion over on my Twitch streams where I have basically been making a house for all of my Twitch moderators. Twitch moderators are people that are voluntarily helping me out to make sure that my chat stays safe, that rules are, shared whenever needed, that people are reminded to behave well, but they also help in bullying me from time to time and just making sure that the stream has like a really good vibe on average. I could not do what I do without my mods. I'm eternally thankful for the people that want to take the time out of their day to help me out and to make sure that my streams are an enjoyable place for everyone to hang out in. And that's also why this project sort of started. I wanted to make sure that one, I could pay a little homage to my mods and give them a forever space in my game, but at the same time I also wanted to make sure that we could use this project to get to know each other a little bit better. I have already uploaded a couple of prior episodes where we work on bedroom 1 to 4 and also where we work on all of the common areas like the living rooms, the kitchens, the outside, the landscaping, the library, the game room, and all the other fun areas that this house will have. Because as the name suggests, this is a huge mansion, so we had a lot of space to fill, and therefore the bedrooms in this house are also generally quite large, but I felt like that is actually kind of perfect because it gives me a lot of space to showcase the personalities and the different types of people living in this house. I also made sure to decorate all of the bathrooms. That's what you're seeing now. We didn't include all of the bathrooms in every single one of the videos, but I did want to make sure that like every nook and cranny of this house was filled so that it genuinely felt like there were people living here. I tried to incorporate clutter of the bathrooms like for the people that were actually using it. Some of the bathrooms were shared, so the one that we're working on right now is actually shared between my mod Lena and my mod Hollow. And then we have a separate toilet here as well, so that is also shared, like a hallway toilet basically. And some of the bedrooms also have their own ensuite bathroom, so it's very dependent on like who is using which bathroom and stuff like that in the house, but I try to make it as luxurious as possible for everyone living here. And that word is difficult to say. I struggled with that on my streams as well, but luxurious is such a difficult word to say if you're not a native English speaker. I struggle with it every single time. I'm not even going to redo that or cut it out because I feel like at this point, I just need support. If you're hanging out here and you're also not a native English speaker, please tell me if you also struggle with certain words. And also let me know if luxurious is also one that you struggle to say because I need to feel less alone. So now that I've reintroduced the basic concept of the Mod Mansion and you guys know a little bit what we're working on, I think it is time to actually introduce my next moderator. Because in this episode, we're going to be working on 2 bedrooms again, and one of them is actually another really big bedroom. And this is one where I definitely struggled to fill the space because one, it was such a huge space and it was perfectly rectangular, but also because this is one of the mods that I actually got to know the most through this project because it's someone who only recently joined the team, so I very much enjoyed getting to know them more through this project. So the bedroom that we're going to build first today is this purple bedroom that is for Lasirah. And Lasirah also filled in the questionnaire, so let me actually share the answers that she gave me to work with specifically for this build. Her favorite color is, you might have guessed it based on what you can see right now, purple. Next to that, her hobbies are reading, volunteering, and video gaming. And specifically the volunteering, one of the things that she does as a volunteer, I actually know and we talk about a lot, and I wanted to make sure to incorporate that in this room, so I'll tell you a little bit about that later. Then next to that, she would describe her own interior aesthetic as simple, open, and cozy. She considers herself more of a minimalist rather than a maximalist when it comes to interior design. She does not own a lot of clutter or clothes. She is a little bit of both when it comes to being messy or neat, so we had to find a nice middle ground again. And I think it was really funny that so many of my mods both answered that they are a little bit messy and a little bit neat. And I think that either depends on people's like definition of messy or definition of neat. I think a lot of people are actually way more neat than that they realize, but they just wouldn't consider themselves super neat because they compare themselves to people that are like extremely organized and extremely well, like everything is cleaned up and tidied away. And Therefore, everyone's like, yeah, but I'm also not really a messy person because there isn't like stuff anywhere and everywhere. So they sort of go for the middle ground of like, yeah, I'm a little bit messy and a little bit neat. And I think that's just super relatable. And I think it was really fun that so many of my mods were like, yeah, a little bit of both, and not just messy, not just neat. But I think that's actually makes all of them very human because I don't think anyone is like perfectly messy or perfectly neat all the time. Next to that, she says that her job or occupation that she has on the day to day is taking calls on the phone for pharmacy prescriptions. So that was also something that I wanted to try and incorporate, especially like what that would look like working from home. Her favorite food is tacos, and the favorite place that she's ever traveled to is San Antonio in Texas. She does like art, but she's not super knowledgeable in art. So it's not like she doesn't like it at all, but it's just not something that she has a lot of information on or insight on. So she mostly wrote that she's not very knowledgeable in art, but I did want to try and give her some like more personal artwork in the room because I wanted to make sure the walls didn't feel empty, but that the things that were on the wall weren't specifically tailored towards liking art, but mostly tailored towards adding decoration that felt personal. Next to that, any guidance or tips that she wanted to give me was that she has 4 cats and 2 dogs, and she specifically writes right now. And I think this is one of the things where the volunteering comes in, because I wanted to really include her volunteer work for a shelter. She actually fosters kittens, and this is something that we've connected over multiple times through my like the mods chat or private chat with her, where we talk about the kittens that she's fostering, because this is actually one of the first things that I noticed about Lasirah when she joined my community, is that she's a very, very caring person, and this very much shows in her love for animals and the way that she fosters and like takes care of foster animals. And I wanted to make sure that that was very well represented in the room, because this for me was one of the, in my brain, like one of the defining factors of like this is who Lasirah is for the longest of times. And I did that in a way by making sure that throughout the entire room, first and foremost, there was plenty of space for the animals. So she could have like multiple kittens or multiple dogs at once, and they would all have a nice space to eat and sleep and chill. And later on, we added a bunch of like pictures and artwork on the walls that looked like pictures of cats and dogs, because I felt like if she was going to add any artwork, it would probably be the memories from all the amazing foster cats and like foster dogs that she's had over the years. And I felt like that way she would still have art in her room without having like any specific style or any specific type of art. Next to that, like I said, I like knew Lasirah the least, quote unquote, but luckily I do know some things, because also my mods, obviously we have a group chat and there were some things that she shared. And also I feel like it helps just to observe someone. That sounds really weird, but I know that Lasirah, for instance, streams as well. So I've watched her streams, and from that, like I learned a little bit about her aesthetic and stuff like that. So all of these little puzzle pieces sort of come together when I'm making a room. And one of the things that I really wanted to include was, like said, she also streams. So I wanted to make sure to have a good streaming setup for her ready. And I also figured that could be a place where she works from home, where she can actually take the calls for the pharmacy. And actually the thing that you see me adding now, an orange blanket, is something that one of my other mods knew about her. So this was again a collaborative project, even though I sometimes might not know something, like when some of my mods have maybe a special item like this specific blanket. Like one of my mods, Hollow, was like, yeah, I know this from a stream, and she talked about it, and like it's something personal to her. So we made sure to include it in the build, and for me that was one of the ways that I actually got to know my moderator better through this project, which was just really fun. And I know that I've said it many times across all of these videos, but for me, that was the whole reason that I wanted to do this project in the first place, is because it's such a great way to get to know someone, to talk about their personal space and what it will look like, and how they would decorate it, because it sort of exposes, quote unquote, a lot about you as a person on so many levels. It isn't as superficial as like just your favorite colors and your hobbies, but it really shows your personality, if hopefully done well. So I hope that I did my mods, all of them, justice, and that they feel like they are represented that way as well. Like I've already mentioned, next to that, this room was particularly a challenge because it was such a big room and it was just a square. And a square isn't easy to lay out because you always end up with this sort of awkward big open space in the middle. But I think I end up making it work quite well by adding like the sofas like this, sort of adding a separate living space into her bedroom, which I could also imagine would be perfect if she had like the foster kittens or the foster dogs and she would be hanging out with them and, you know, maybe having playtime or cuddle time, that it would actually be perfect to have that additional space. Next to that, I actually was even more challenged almost with this because due to time zones, Lasirah cannot be in my stream super often. So especially when I'm streaming at like less daytime, she's on US time zone, so during the day she can be there for her workday. But like when I am on my evening streams, very often she simply has other things to do because that's like her afternoon, end of afternoon, like evening time. So she just has other obligations, which actually makes a lot of sense. And that is why time zones can be such a painful challenge. But that means that she wasn't here when I was actually building this room, so I couldn't really check with her for confirmation. And I had the luxury that with one of my other mods, or like multiple of my other mods, I could actually ask them questions in chat and I could verify with them whether they actually liked what I was building. But luckily, a couple of days later, Lasirah did join the stream and I was able to ask her whether she liked her room, and she said that she absolutely loved it and that she really liked all the personal details and additions that we added. So I was really happy, but it was definitely a challenge not being able to sort of check in with someone whether what you were building was actually their style and whether you liked it. So I think that is everything that I specifically want to share about this build. I think that covers all of the most important details for this room. So I'll let you guys enjoy the last little bit of decoration, and then I'll come back with the voiceover when we start the next room for my next moderator. So here we are with the second bedroom of this video, and this bedroom is for my quote-unquote moderator because technically he is no longer my mod, but this is for my mod Mick. Mick was actually one of my first mods to onboard the team. So my very first mod was Sweetie, and then a couple of months into streaming I added Tubro and Mick to the team. And Mick is actually still one of my close friends. We hang out a lot, we meet up for coffee, we try to go for lunch every now and then, and it's genuinely so cool to be able to become friends with someone through the internet. And it's really lovely that we get to still hang out even though he might not be part of my moderator team anymore. That was a completely collaborative decision because we realized that with his life changing and all the things that were going on, he didn't have as much time to be there in my stream. So we agreed that he would now be a VIP in the stream, and that would give him a little bit more freedom to just come hang out rather than feel obligated to moderate as well. However, obviously we still wanted to give him a room in the mod mansion because he has modded for me for like 2 years, and it would feel weird to me personally to exclude him because he's done so much for the community, especially in the early days when there were, only a few people that were close enough to the community that I could trust on that level. He was definitely one of those people, so I was very happy to have him on board. And I really enjoyed making his room because, again, it was a completely different style to anything I'd done before. To give you a little bit of context, I will first give you the answers that Mick gave to the questionnaire so you can sort of see his own input. And then I want to talk a little bit about what we're creating here. So his favorite color is orange, which I guess is already kind of obvious from what we're building right here. When I asked about his hobbies, he wrote gym in capital letters and then in between brackets, of course. This is because he actually talks about this a lot on stream. So for him, it's of course because he is actually a gym rat. Like I don't think I know many people that love going to the gym as much as Mick does. So that obviously had to be included. Next to that, he writes that his hobbies are being handy and helping people out, and that he really enjoys cooking and eating. If he had to describe his interior aesthetic in 3 words, it would be pastel, wood, and metal. And I remember reading that on stream and thinking to myself, how on earth am I going to combine pastel, wood, and metal? But I think in the end in this room, I actually managed to do it, and I'm pretty proud of it because those 3 things are not super common to go together. When asked if he is more of a maximalist or a minimalist, he describes himself as a minimalist. He does have a lot of clutter and clothes, specifically clothes, and then he says he does love a good controlled amount of clutter, which I actually asked eventually when he was watching the stream and we were talking about this room. I asked him whether the amount of clutter in the room was a controlled amount, and he said yes, and that he enjoyed it, so that was actually very fun. He does consider himself to be a messy person, so I wanted to make sure that there was also stuff around the room in different places, not necessarily always the most logical place because maybe he just dropped it wherever he used it last. Then for work, he takes care of heating and cooling for apartment complexes, businesses, and shopping malls. And this is actually something that we've talked about quite a lot, specifically on the last couple of times that we met up, like what he does on a day-to-day basis and what his job looks like and stuff like that. And I wanted to make sure that this part of his job was mostly represented in having specific tools in his room, because next to the fact that he does this for a living, like he also writes himself, he does really enjoy helping people, but he is someone who is just generally really handy, and he likes to help out when it comes to like painting things or building things, DIYing things. This is something that he's also helped me a lot with in my house. My speedy internet connection is literally because he helped run a cable through the wall so I would have wired internet in my office. So Mick is one of those people that when you say that you have a job that needs to be done, but you don't really know how to go about it, he is the first person to offer to be like, yes, of course, I can come help you out. And that is so incredibly appreciated. So even though he might not be a moderator for the stream anymore, I think his work has such a major effect on my stream still, because literally without him helping, I wouldn't be able to stream the way that I do right now because I wouldn't have internet in my room. So I think everyone in the comments, make sure that you'll leave your favorite emoji as a thank you to Mick for helping us out, because I would not be able to do what I do without him helping me, and it's very appreciated. Some other things that I feel like I really wanted to incorporate in this room was, like I said, the fact that he enjoys a good DIY. So I wanted to sort of incorporate that in the build of his room. I wanted to make sure that his bed area, specifically the part with like the headboard and the nightstands and the mural and sort of that built-in, I don't know, industrial construction. I wanted to incorporate the cozy together with the steel look, and I tried to make that in a way as if he built it himself, as if he enjoyed, making sure that the space looked like he worked on it to really make it his own. And when I showed that to him, he also said that he very, very much enjoyed this. I think that was something that wasn't necessarily very clear from the answers that he had given, but that really made it feel more personal to, actually feel like his room. And he also said, you're giving me ideas to do things with my, IRL space. So that was very fun to hear. Other things that I incorporated that he didn't really list, but I just simply know because I've met him multiple times, is that he really enjoys good coffee. So I wanted to make sure that there was a little coffee corner in here. And he also enjoys a good pair of sneakers. So he has quite a lot of sneakers. So I made sure there was plenty of storage for all of his shoes. And then there is one final detail that I included that was actually very fun to talk about, because this was a little anecdote that happened when we were literally just introduced. Like, we were just talking. I think this was even before he became my moderator on Twitch. We were basically just friends. And he sent me a photo because he was going to celebrate Halloween with his friends. And he was wearing a pumpkin on his head, but the pumpkin was wearing headphones. And I remember that I thought that was so silly, and that made me laugh, and that was so funny. That was like one of those memories that has always stuck with me. When I think about Mick, I think about the pumpkin head with the headphones. And he had completely forgotten that he ever sent me this picture, because this was literally in like the first couple of months that we knew each other. So this is probably more than 4 years ago at this point. So he could not remember that this happened. But I worked really hard to actually add a pumpkin with headphones on into the build. So it's like in his room. And then because I added that, he was reminded of the story, and we looked up the picture again and we talked about it on stream, and I got to share that with the community, which sort of brought back that little memory or that little moment, which was just something, again, that in this way it was almost reversed. Like, I didn't necessarily get to know one of my mods better, but my chat really got to know one of my mods better. So that was actually really fun and amazing. And yeah, I think that's everything that I wanted to share about this room. Like with every video up until this point, I would absolutely love to hear your favorite part from this specific building. Anything that you liked, anything that you enjoyed about the room, anything silly, goofy, anything that you learned about one of my moderators that you thought was really cool. I would absolutely love to hear it. And yeah, if you are not subscribed to my YouTube channel, this would be a perfect time to do so. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a cheeky like or a comment, because it does really help the video get to more people. And with all of that being said, I'll see you guys on the next one.